Hello, everybody. Today I'm summarizing It's a Wonderful Life. The story begins with the story begins with angels giving a summary of George Bailey, and it kind of shows like the space as they're talking. In the opening, they discuss how George Bailey, uh, young George Bailey, he helps his brother from drowning in ice, and he also helped a pharmacist who he was working for, who was dealing with loss of his own child. And there's an introduction to young Mary, who will be a love interest in the story as they continue. Then the story cuts to a adult George Bailey. Now, George, he is searching for a higher education. He wants to do a lot. He wants to get out there in the world. At a dance, George Bailey reconnects with Mary, adult Mary, and they are doing a dance called the Charleston, which is a very old-fashioned dance, but um, in this scene, the pool opens and they all fall in, which is a humorous scene. Shortly after the dance, the father who ran the bank passes away, and George has to deal with that. Banking business. There's a character named Mr. Potter who wants to take over the banking, and he's he's very mean-spirited, and George just doesn't like him at all. George temporarily takes over the banking business in hopes that his brother will, after finishing his education, will come and take care of the business so George can go out and see the world. As the story goes on, George has 4 children. As George works at the bank, a key thing occurs that will kind of lead to a downward spiral. Money that was in an envelope gets lost by George's work colleague, and this caused like a spiral because this sets the bank back a lot. This money being gone. This pushes George Bailey to an ultimate low where he contemplates the end. And then comes Clarence. Clarence is an angel, and he's mentioned in the beginning of the story when the angels are talking, giving a summary of George. Clarence is there, and they want to send him down. And at this point in the story, when George hits the low, Clarence comes in and helps George by showing him what life would be like if George wasn't a part of it. Like, basically shows the world if George Bailey wasn't born. Shows that. By the end of the film, George Bailey has learned that the world is a lot better with him in it, and that he should be happy for what he has. And it really is a wonderful life that he's living compared to what life would be like if he wasn't in it. So that's my summary of A Wonderful Life. Hope you all enjoyed. Have a happy holiday, and See you next week.
Today, I want to discuss a film that is 100 years old this year. The film is called The Phantom Carriage. Oh, yeah. Now, there's a legend that someone who dies before the new year becomes the next Grim Reaper in this story. David Hart. He is a mean, rude man who dies during a fight just before midnight. There's a cool ghost effect in the film that uses like a double exposure on the film, so you can see like David gets up like as a ghost and interacts with the Grim Reaper, which is pretty neat sequence. Now, David, he had tuberculosis throughout the film, and he ended up spreading it to those around him. A prime example is Edith. Now, she's a very religious woman who tries to help David, but is met with nothing but rudeness from David. David just treats her very poorly. And unfortunately, she catches tuberculosis and dies in the film. I mean, it's not just Edith who's being treated badly by David. It's also his family at home, like his wife and his kids, by his own behavior. And what happens in the story is when he's taken by the Grim Reaper, he's shown the error of his ways through past instances in his life, which makes him reevaluate the way he treated people. And by the end of the film, he's brought back to the living world to be a better person and treat his family better, and therefore live a better life. I really enjoyed the film. I found it to be an enjoyable watch. It's a very good silent film. I'd recommend checking it out.
Hello. I am going to talk about One Night in Miami, a 2020 film. It features 4 characters. Muhammad Ali, aka Cassius Clay, before he became Muhammad Ali. Malcolm X, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke are the 4 key characters in this story. Now, in talking about it, it's takes place after Cassius Clay wins a fight and wants to celebrate. And he that night is making a decision to change his religion, so he'll change his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. And by switching to Malcolm X's religion. And there's a discussion throughout the film on whether he's making the right decision or not. And by the end of the film, Cassius Clay decides to become Muhammad Ali. Also part of the story is Malcolm X has bodyguards. He's very paranoid throughout the film. Very cautious because he feels like he's being watched. And he has his As you can see, I drew a little camera here. He's documenting a lot of the night on his old-fashioned camera that has film in it, which is very interesting. I found it to be a good discussion piece kind of film. I really enjoyed the characters. I really felt like their discussions were deep and interesting. It gets on the discussion of race, politics, and music. And I really enjoyed how these characters were, like, really fleshed out, but also, based on real people. And in a real night that actually happened, where all four of them were in an actual room. But I don't think they have, like, full knowledge of the conversation they had. This is just, I think, a filmmaker's interpretation of the conversation, using historical information. But it's a very enjoyable film. I'd suggest that you check out One Night in Miami, because that is a good film.